None of them saw it coming. 50,000 men were sitting down to eat when they saw it. A wall of sand, rising higher than anything they'd ever seen, swallowing the horizon whole. There was no time to run, no time to dig in, no time for anything at all. And then, nothing. No bodies were ever found, no weapons, no wreckage. An entire Persian army, one of the largest military forces in the ancient world, walked into the desert and simply stopped existing. For 2,500 years, historians called it a myth. They were wrong, and what actually happened is far stranger than a sandstorm. By the end of this video, you'll know the real story behind history's most famous vanishing act, including a discovery that was announced to the entire world and then quietly, embarrassingly, fell apart. Because in 2009, someone claimed to have solved this mystery. They were wrong too. The actual answer wasn't found in the sand at all. It was hiding in stone, carved by the one man who had every reason to erase it from history. To understand what was lost, you need to understand who sent them. Cambyses II wasn't just a king. He was the son of Cyrus the Great, the man who built the largest empire the world had ever seen. When Cambyses inherited the throne, he inherited something almost impossible to live up to. An empire that stretched from Greece to India, and a father whose name was already legend. So when Cambyses set his sights on Egypt, the last great civilization his father never conquered, this wasn't just a military campaign. It was Cambyses trying to prove he belonged on his father's throne at all. 50,000 of his soldiers were about to pay the price for that ambition. In 525 BC, Cambyses invaded Egypt and won almost immediately. At the Battle of Pelusium, his army crushed Pharaoh Psamtik III's forces. Memphis fell soon after. Cambyses declared himself Pharaoh of Egypt, ruler of two empires at once. By any measure, it was a triumph. Egypt, ancient even by ancient standards, a civilization ruling the Nile for 3,000 years, now answered to a Persian king. But conquering Egypt's cities was one thing. Conquering its gods was another matter entirely. Deep in the western desert sat Siwa, a remote oasis, home to the Oracle of Amun. This wasn't just a temple. Kings across the ancient world traveled here to have their legitimacy confirmed. Alexander the Great would make that same pilgrimage a century later. Cambyses expected the same treatment, a blessing, confirmation that he was the rightful ruler of Egypt. The oracle refused him. We don't know the exact words, but we know the result. Cambyses, already rumored by his own soldiers to be dangerously unstable, did not take the insult quietly. He ordered 50,000 men into the desert to erase the Oracle of Amun completely. The army marched out from Thebes, following the Nile before turning west into open desert, toward Dakhla Oasis, then beyond it into terrain almost nothing survives. 7 days. That's how long the ancient historian Herodotus says it took them to reach the last known waypoint before Siwa. 7 days of marching through some of the most punishing terrain on Earth, carrying weapons, armor, and supplies for a war against a temple that couldn't fight back. And then, according to the only account we have, they simply kept going. deeper into terrain that had no landmarks, no water, and no way back. They stopped to eat. That's the detail that makes this story haunting instead of just historical. An army of 50,000 men, mid-meal, completely unaware that they were about to become one of history's greatest disappearances. A wind rose from the south. Herodotus described it as strong and deadly, carrying, in his words, vast columns of whirling sand. And then the entire army vanished. No survivors reached Siwa. No survivors returned to Thebes. For 25 centuries, that's all anyone knew. Explorers searched for this army for over 100 years. Amateur adventurers, professional archaeologists, entire funded expeditions into some of the most dangerous, waterless terrain in the world, all chasing the same impossible goal. Find 50,000 bodies buried somewhere beneath the Great Sand Sea. They found nothing. Not weapons, not bones, not a single confirmed trace. By the 20th century, most historians had written the story off entirely, dismissed as myth, exaggeration, or a tale Herodotus never should have repeated. Then, in 2009, someone claimed to have finally found them. Two Italian archaeologists, Angelo and Alfredo Castiglioni, announced they'd discovered the remains, bronze weapons, human bones, personal artifacts, scattered near Siwa, exactly where Herodotus said the army should have vanished. It was international news. Headlines around the world declared the ancient mystery finally solved. But almost immediately, the story started falling apart. Mainstream Egyptologists raised serious doubts about the dating of the artifacts, about whether they were even Persian at all, about whether this was the right stretch of desert in the first place. The solved mystery wasn't solved. The bones went quiet. The headlines moved on. And the real answer was still out there, just not where anyone was looking. In 2014, a discovery happened almost by accident. Egyptologist Olaf Kaper of Leiden University wasn't even looking for Cambyses' army. He was deciphering inscriptions at a completely different oasis, Dakhla, cataloging the titles of a little-known Egyptian ruler named Petubastis III. What Kaper found rewrote the entire story. Those inscriptions described Petubastis leading a rebellion against Persian rule and winning a major military victory in the right region, in the right time frame. The army didn't vanish into a sandstorm at all. It was ambushed, defeated, destroyed by Egyptian rebels who knew that desert far better than any Persian invader ever could. So why did history remember a sandstorm instead of a battle? Because 2 years later, Cambyses' successor, Darius I, crushed that same Egyptian rebellion in brutal fashion. And a Persian king couldn't let the story stand that 50,000 of his own soldiers had been wiped out by Egyptian rebels. A natural disaster was a far more convenient story than a humiliating defeat. So that's the story that survived for 2,500 years. The desert didn't swallow that army. An empire's pride did. If you enjoyed uncovering this one, hit like and subscribe. We dig up a new lost story every week. Drop a comment. Which theory do you actually believe?